on this historic day.
It's a great day.
It is. Mars.
No pun intended. This is a watershed day for science.
It is. So
once you have liquid water on Mars, something is swimming in it. There's got to be something alive in it.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Intuitively obvious.
So tell me, Doctor, for all our listeners tonight. This is huge. This means something.
Huge. My students, I teach a science class, and my students wanted to talk about nothing else besides this. We don't want to talk about the stuff we want to talk about. We want to talk about this.
Oh, well, I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all.
But when I explained what it meant, they were all very serious. They realized we're passing through a big transition in human consciousness now.
We most certainly are. We Doctor, the first thing that came to mind when I heard this announcement from NASA was you telling us about the signatures for nuclear explosions on Mars, and I can't help it, but my mind is telling me we are the Martians. We came from there. We did that. Well,
it certainly means we're part of a living universe. That's for sure. And and just about every possibility must be considered now, including the fact that we came from Mars. We're somehow refugees in one form or another. This means that Mars is now a living planet and was in the past, because obviously it had a lot more water in the past. And we know from every place we investigate on Earth, every place we find liquid water, we find life in it. Something is alive in it. The two just go together, but like hand in glove. And life, we also know, is very tenacious. So if Mars had an ocean in the past full of living things, then some of that would be surviving now. In fact, Mike, this leads to a very fascinating possibility that was actually explored in a science fiction movie called Robinson Crusoe on Mars. And the astronaut, it was made in the 60s, it's a very interesting movie, and the astronaut is saved because he finds there's oxygen in the rocks. So he cooks the rocks. He finds that some of the rocks burn. So and then he finds that just by heating the rocks, he can release oxygen. That there's like solid rocket fuel. And
yeah.
They found this rocket fuel stuff all over Mars now. So it appears to me we must now consider the possibility that Mars life makes and eats rocket fuel. Isn't that something? It's just like just like a 1950s science fiction movie. Mars life makes rocket fuel from photosynthesis and then eats it.
So it pretty much grows its own food or makes its own food.
Yes, they have various bacteria on Earth. Life on Earth is extremely clever and has figured out a way to live in all sorts of environments, many without oxygen, or like in deserts. And what the plants in deserts will do is they'll, instead of breathing in CO2 and expelling oxygen during the day, they'll actually capture CO2 and then digest it at night. They'll store the energy of the sunlight in special molecules and then use it all night to make CO2 into sugar and breathe out oxygen. And they do this so they won't lose water in the process.
Uh-huh.
They have a very water conserving method for doing photosynthesis, and also photosynthesis happens. The plants are getting rained on, and then they have plenty of water, and then they use the water. They break down the water actually and join it with CO2 to make sugar, and then breathe out the oxygen. But a lot of plants in various situations don't do that. They capture the oxygen on something that they can get rid of later. The oxygen is a waste product for plants. It's a nuisance.
Yeah.
So they try to get rid of it. So it looks like these bacteria on Mars, let me put it this way. Sodium perchlorate is a very rare chemical on Earth. It's only found in any amount worth talking about in nitrate deposits in Chile. These are old guano deposits. They're made by penguins and seabirds millions of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gradually, they're in a desert, so they gradually turn into nitrate, which is a very oxygen-rich substance that's related to saltpeter used in gunpowder. And then in the middle of this kind of saltpeter stuff is perchlorate, and no one can figure out where it comes from. And some people propose that perhaps it's created by bacteria. That is, and this place in South America, at the Atacama Desert in Chile, is very Martian. It's a very dry desert, and there's not. So the bacteria has to be very clever. So they find this perchlorate mixed with this sodium nitrate in the sodium nitrate deposits, and 5 will get you 10. Bacteria is causing this. Some kind of bacteria is breaking down the sodium nitrate or absorbing sunlight and using the nitrate to make it's mixed with salt, ordinary table salt.
Mm-hmm.
It's using table salt, adding oxygen to it to store the oxygen, and then making perchlorate. And that's why they're finding perchlorate everywhere on Mars. So what this suggests is bacteria on Mars is making its own rocket fuel and then eating it. It's storing up rocket fuel for the winter, and that's instead of making sugar like on Earth. It makes sugar, but it uses rocket fuel for oxygen. And the plants make rocket fuel instead of releasing oxygen, and then the other animals, other bacteria breaks down this rocket fuel to make oxygen and energy and stuff. So it's like a science fiction movie.
And Doctor, would you be surprised at all if plant life is now found on Mars?
Oh, not at all. I grew up in a place in Oregon. You must realize that green plant life on this planet, green light is the most abundant form of light from the sun is actually green. And in fact, the eye is most sensitive to green light because it's you can tell things. That's why night vision scopes use green phosphor, because the human eye can tell more shades of green than anything else. But most of the green light from the sun is bounced off of the satellite, bounced off of plants. They don't use it. They use red and blue light. But where I grew up, there was seaweed that grew on the beaches, or it was like under about 5 feet of water off the beaches, and it would wash up on shore, and it was red.
Ah.
And so basically the plant life on Mars is probably red.
Yeah.
So we're looking for green. We're looking for green stuff on Mars. And all of the plant life, which is probably forming kind of lichen-like deposits on rocks, is red. It's bouncing off all the red light. It doesn't use it. It, in fact, uses the green and the blue light for photosynthesis. So we're going to find out that we've been staring at Mars life for 40 years up close, and haven't seen it because we thought we weren't looking for the right color. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's I think Mars life is going to be very surprising and also very tough. In fact, my joke is, if you don't believe there's life in the water on Mars, go ahead and drink it. Any kind of life that can survive on Mars is probably meaner and tougher than a desert rattlesnake. So I would not if I was a astronaut walking around on Mars, I would be extremely careful not to let any Mars life get in my spacesuit, because it would probably view anything like a human being as a all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah.
But no, we are going through. This is what a scientific revolution looks like. We're in the middle of one. We're in the middle of the shockwave. I could just see it on my students' faces.
Oh, this is incredible. This is awesome. I mean, this is just...
No, it is. It's just, we now realize, well, if Mars has liquid water, it has life. It's just intuitively obvious, and it's obvious from everything we know about life on Earth. And so if we're finding liquid water on Mars, we're basically confirmed that, yes, there is life on Mars. And because there's life on Mars, which is the closest Earth-like planet we can get to, it means the universe is full of life.
Yeah.
We're part of a living universe. We have to start adjusting to that. And we have to become spacefaring. Mike, we have to go to Mars.
We do.
Let's go to Mars. And as I've been saying, you know, like when we found evidence for massive nuclear explosions on Mars and reported it to the government, they told us to publish. So you must realize the U.S. government has actually taken the lead in, you know, finding life in the meteorites of Mars and now finding this liquid water. So Uncle Sammy wants to go to Mars, and he basically wants the public up to speed in order to justify that. So it's very exciting.
It is. It's tremendously.
Well, think of ourselves as on the road. That we've joined Starfleet, and we're going to serve on the Enterprise with Captain Kirk,
yeah.
I'm dating myself, you know. That's my idea of that's my idea of Star Trek. That we're going to be part of Star Trek or Star Wars.
Well, I hope not wars.
No, yeah, I hope not too. But you know, we're going to be part of the voyage of Star Trek, and this is the first step on a long journey. Well, it's actually. I can say that, and I know there are some people who believe that the government. It's impossible for the government to do anything without a whole range of other motives. That basically the government has been doing its job. It was supposed to. We paid them to investigate Mars, and they've done it. And they found the big. They found where the treasure was buried, life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't argue with that. You know, I'm thankful that they're at least coming out and giving us the truth in that sense. And
they are.
Yeah.
And of course they have their own reasons for doing that.
Well, sure.
Sometimes I view the government as like one of these cousins who, even when he tells you the truth, is keeping part of it back, and is always and has an agenda, even when they're just come up to you and tell you the truth, like the building is on fire.
Well, right. Yeah, you probably got something.
They all want you to run out of the building so they can collect all the valuables from the safe before they leave. Something like that. I'm just.
Yeah, I get it. You know, whatever their motives are, I'll put those on the back burner for today.
Let's realize the human race is advancing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Doctor, I know you've got.
It's a great day. It's a great day for our science. It's a great day to be a human being in the universe, and we're moving ahead. We're going places. We
are. We absolutely are. I think we've been going places. I think that's how we got here.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, Doctor, thank you so much for popping on and speaking with us about this. And we've got to plan a full show. I think there's a lot to talk about.
Right, Mike. Let's talk more about this. I'm going to be publishing this rocket, Mars life that makes rocket fuel and then eats it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bottom line is they found liquid water on Mars, and where there's liquid water, based on everything we know about life on Earth, where there is liquid water, there is life. So they basically found the environment, Earth-like environment for Earth life, Earth-like life. So,
absolutely,
it's a great day.
All right, well, it is a great day, and I'm glad to actually share a few minutes of it with you today, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. I'm very always glad to talk to you.
All right, well, you have a great night. All right, bye-bye. I'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye-bye. All right, so there he is, Dr. Brandenburg, and on this historic day.
It's a great day.
It is. Mars.
No pun intended. This is a watershed day for science.
It is. So
once you have liquid water on Mars, something is swimming in it. There's got to be something alive in it.
Yeah. I don't blame them at all.
But when I explained what it meant, they were all very serious. They realized we're passing through a big transition in human consciousness now.
We most certainly are. Doctor, the first thing that came to mind when I heard this announcement from NASA was you telling us about the signatures for nuclear explosions on Mars.
This means that Mars is now a living planet and was in the past, because obviously it had a lot more water in the past. And we know from every place we investigate on Earth, every place we find liquid water, we find life in it. Something is alive in it. The two just go together, but like hand in glove. And
it just, I can't help it, but my mind is telling me we are the Martians. We came from there. We did that.
Well, it certainly means we're part of a living universe. That's for sure. And and just about every possibility must be considered now, including the fact that we came from Mars. We're somehow refugees in one form or another.
I would think so too.
Intuitively obvious.
So tell me, Doctor, for all our listeners tonight. This is huge. This means something.
Huge. My students, I teach science class, and my students wanted to talk about nothing else besides this. We don't want to talk about the stuff we want to talk about. We want to talk about this.
Oh, well, I don't blame them.